Nitai namine che namir hate sharamuli nam tite chere. Nitai namine che namir hate sharamuli nam tite chere. Nitai namine che namir hate shadamulinam tite chere. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The following is a presentation to encourage us to read Srila Prabhupada's books. And it starts with an original song that was written and sung in a studio by Havidas, who's a famous musician, super famous in Venezuela. He's won 2 Grammys for his writing. And he and his son-in-law also helped, and several others. We had a team that worked on a short movie. It's not a movie, it's an animation. So first comes the song. I believe you have it lined up. And I've heard, although I don't believe it yet, that the audio works properly. So let's see. You can hear this song about, okay, first of all, sorry about that. Be a sage page by page, in case anybody's planning on stealing that phrase or logo. It is copyrighted. Be a sage page by page. Be a sage page by page is a system for reading Srila Prabhupada's books that I came up with for myself, and then I made it into a simplified process that anybody can follow. I started noticing that, although as a brahmachari, I read constantly and pretty much every day, that later on in life there were a few gaps here and there, and I started thinking, I need to be completely on track with reading Prabhupada's books. One thing is, he told me personally to read his books. That was an instruction I got from him directly, sitting in front of him. So I took that I should figure out a way that I can do that every day. And then I realized one day when I was listening to a talk by a motivational speaker named Brian Tracy, who said, any task that seems to be overwhelming can be done if you divide it into small sections. And I thought, of course, I could do that with Prabhupada's books. And especially helpful is that you can count the number of pages in Prabhupada's books. They're a finite number. Although there's a lot, it's finite. So, with a little help from a friend, I started counting all the pages in all of Prabhupada's books. And then I made a chart. And the chart was a inclusion of the various books Prabhupada wrote, how many pages each one is, and then I divided it into sections to show how many pages one would have to read each day to finish in a certain time period. For instance, I realized, and one of my dreams was to finish the Bhagavatam every year, and I said, well, let me figure out how many pages I'd have to read in order to finish the Bhagavatam in 1 year. And there's a number. I mean, it's just easy mathematics. It's 41 pages. You'll read all 12 cantos in a little less than a year if you read 41 pages a day. And then, of course, if you don't have time to devote to reading 41 pages, which is about an hour a day, then if you do it in 5 years, then you only have to read 8 pages a day. and so forth. And that holds for all of Prabhupada's books. And then after some time, several years, I brought up to one of our very talented engineers that I would like to have an app. Nam Smarana Prabhu then said about putting BSH page by page into an app. And on the app, there's a picker wheel, and you can pick any one of Prabhupada's books. And then you can decide what period of time you'd like to finish it, and you can play around with it and see how many pages or how many verses, because you'll notice when you read electronically, there's no way to track by pages, so you can track by verses instead. So there's a toggle switch that you can push, and then it tells you either one. And it also gives you reminders, does the app, to finish your pages per day, and it becomes a prescription. And when you have it, it's very helpful because it becomes part of your daily activity to finish your pages. One thing that I do is I use flags that you can buy at any office store. They're plastic and they re-stick. People use them to mark reports. And I use them to mark where I am in a book. And I use two flags, re-stickable flags. They usually last for about 4 volumes before the stick runs out. But I put, for instance, for the Bhagavatam, I'll write 41 on one of the flags, and on the other flag I just put a forward arrow. So both of them rest together on a certain section of the Bhagavatam where I stopped the day before. And then the next day when I start my reading, I'll open to that page and I'll move the 41 flag, 41 pages forward. And the little arrow I stick on the outside of the cover of the book. So if I happen to stop before I finish my 41 pages, that's where I mark it with the forward arrow. That's my system. You can try it if you like. It works for me. I also like reading paper books because I have a spatial recognition of where I was. In fact, I notice that I tend to remember where something was on the page. Like I'll think back and I'll go, I know it was on the top left-hand corner. It doesn't work so well electronically. It almost seems infinite when you're reading from an electronic device. At least for me, it seems infinite and it's hard to tell where I am. Although I do use it in various circumstances to keep it going, to keep the reading going. But I find that marking where I am and marking my progress is very helpful to keeping the reading going. And I thought it would be helpful to tell you that before you hear the song. Be a sage, page by page. And with that, let's hear the hit song. I give a disclaimer before we start, or a warning, a caveat. This song will get caught in your head, and if you have any kids in here, don't let them hear it, because they'll start singing it day and night. There's a couple in Toronto who are Sankirtan leaders, and their kids heard this song because they were helping, the family was helping a little bit in putting together this presentation. And they didn't stop singing it for months. And that's how good Havi is in writing songs too. They really catch your ear. He's written many hit songs, and this is one of the biggest hits ever. So let's hear it. Be a sage, page by page. Here we go. Can you start at the beginning, please? Start at the beginning. Okay.
Align your mind and heart. Be a sage, page by change. Be a sage, page by page. Be a sage. The books are the rays to illuminate the dark. Fan the spark. Be a sage, page by page. Be a sage. Brighten up your life, be a sage. Page by page.
this is part of the broadcast. So there's a little introduction from the moderator of this show that we put on a few years ago. And then it's going to go into an animated sequence that's about 6 minutes long that I think you'll like. So we can let it roll. But I'm just letting you know that this was a record. We did it live, and then this is the recording of it.
Devotees, to be a sage, page by page, upgrade your life by reading Srila Prabhupada's books. An interactive webinar presented by the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust and the ISKCON Ministry of Education. And now, on with the show. The books that Srila Prabhupada wrote are an invaluable treasure. Their benefit is universal. Their worth has no measure. Please pay attention to the story of this soul's journey to the path of bhakti for Sri Krishna's pleasure.
A young soul sits in his home, phone in his palm, TV's on so he doesn't feel alone. It seems like the glow of the screens bring a dull light to the room but not warmth to the scene. He's trying to unwind, decompress and sit back, but he feels stressed, he can't clear his mind and relax. I need to get out. Out of this room, out of this house, out of this world of disquiet, anxiety, and doubts. Some fresh air, a few deep breaths in the park under the trees before it closes at dark is just what I need. So he takes a walk. He'll sit at his favorite spot, connect with nature, be alone with his thoughts. The air is crisp, the breeze carries the scent of rain. He takes a seat and hears someone whisper his name. There's no one around, but a man feeding some birds, bread in his hand, eyes down, not speaking a word. He looks in surprise, as there's a book at his side. The pages stir with the wind and the softest of sighs. It calls to him. What could this be? No one claims it when he asks. I guess I'll take it with me. He gets to his feet, book tucked in his coat, as he heads to the street, intrigued by this mystery. Set into motion by this young soul's need, the eternal Prince of Beauty has planted a seed. That night, under the light of the moon, this soul's mind and heart are consumed by the wisdom and spirit of this text. It connects him line direct to the source of this world and the next. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hidden within these books lay keys to unlock inner perfection, to live life in service through a spirit of self-reflection, connection to the divine source, single-minded direction, to the Lord of the heart, this soul's eternal affection. The book lifts his consciousness, his mind is refined to a state of peace and introspection while he seeks the divine. Reading with intention and discipline, his life realigns with the depth and clarity as his voyage unwinds. Reading summons from the spiritual realm sacred sound. Embraced within his heart, he deepens his practice. Progress, day by day, page by page, prayer after prayer, and his life is changed. The years pass, and the light that ignited his transformation smolders within the depths of his soul, though he never loses sight of the goal. The weight of obligation slows his determination, a subtle burden that slowly wears away his control. He works in the world, doing his best to live with integrity and spiritual consciousness. Though his intentions are good, he's not doing all that he should. He finds that his discipline is being put to the test. But as he sits in his daughter's room, his mind turns back to the magic of that night. The mystic sages, the wisdom, the light, spiritual discipline, service, interdimensional flight to a realm of love and devotion, every soul's birthright. A fresh day, inspiration renewed, the family comes together to clean the temple room. It clears the mind and cleanses the heart. Excitement is in the air. This is a beautiful start. Service to God, Krishna, and chanting his name. Devotion to Prabhupada with gratitude that he came to deliver this message through these books and the scripture, to paint the spiritual world in a glorious picture. A line unbroken, age to age, from the ancient era to the modern day. His daughter today becomes tomorrow's sage. She starts her journey at the park, page by page, page by page.
As you may have seen at the end, that was all original music. Even the background music and so forth was created by Prabhu, and the artwork by Kaveri, who's an excellent artist, as you can see. And then there were some technical people who did the animation. And the script, which is sort of a rap, was written by Havi's son-in-law. And just after that, in the live broadcast, we go into, if you have the different file that has the slides, and these are a few thoughts I've had about how to organize yourself in such a way that you can read Prabhupada's books regularly. And we can go through these slides page by page, page by page. I just pushed a button and I got Brahman. This would be a PPT and not the presentation, if you see what I'm saying. What you were just showing there was a movie, and it keeps going. So this, with a file, I'm hoping that that's just a PPT, right?
Yes.
Good. I don't think this is a PPT. This is still the video. Okay. Maybe it is. Okay, so I'm gonna, what's the noise? Try muting there. You hear that? Something's radioactive. So I'll be talking about 3 keys to diligent reading of Srila Prabhupada's books. And the first is change the channel, change your life. Hare Krishna. So everyone, according to their preference to begin with and then conditioning, gets tuned into a certain channel. People get into habits of listening or reading based on their association. Sometimes people read the newspaper. It becomes their daily habit. Or people look at TikTok. or YouTube, and they get into habits, and they just do it every day. And nowadays, I notice that with smartphones, they've started measuring how much time one spends on the device, and you can kind of see where you spent your time. That's useful to have. And that's something you can assess for yourself. It's good to do an audit and see where you're spending your time throughout the day. What are you listening to? What's your channel? Really, the channel is what you choose to read. And there's a way that we have to use our own free choice. At some point, we have to be a hero. Prabhupada mentions in his purports that there are two kinds of heroes in this world. Some are the people who are known for their capacity for sense gratification. And people become famous because they have an attitude that I can do whatever I like in life. Sometimes they become famous musicians or actors, and they're seen here and there doing whatever they feel like, and they become heroic figures in the world. Do you have any of those in India? No? Heroic figures, an athlete or something, and they're known for they can do whatever they want. And of course, we all know it doesn't last forever. We see some of these so-called heroes, and then later on they become broken, either physically or mentally, or financially. And everyone comes to that end one way or another here in the material world. So real heroism is to get informed by Krishna about what's the best choice to make, how to live one's life, and then to take that choice. So we have to analyze which kind of channel we're tuned into and make a heroic choice to upgrade that channel. Am I making sense? So the wise have explained that one result is derived from the culture of knowledge, and that a different result is obtained from the culture of nescience. Who knows this verse from the Sri Upanishad? 1. Who knows the Sri Upanishad? 1, 2. You know the whole thing? Can you recite it? It's easy to learn. It's only 18 verses plus the invocation. You can learn that. Should learn the holy Sri Upanishad and the Upadeshamrita. That's another one that you can learn if you just integrate it into your life. In any case, this verse from the Sri Upanishad says, Anyadeva sambhavad, Anyadahura sambhavad, iti shushumadhiranam, yenas tadvij. From the culture of nescience, and another is obtained from the culture of knowledge. And we should know the difference and be aware of the fact wherever I'm investing my attention every day, that's the result I'm going to get. And there's a lyric from a song from the 1980s that I've always thought was amusing. But in it, the songwriter had written, I don't know what you expect staring into the TV set. And not only it caught my ear when I heard that lyric. What do you expect if you look into a screen? Your attention pours into an endless pit and you lose it. We only get a certain number of minutes and seconds in this world. And if you waste it, it's the greatest loss. And so if we're wondering, how did I develop into what I am now? We can only look back and see, where did you invest your attention? You know, ROI, what does that stand for? Return on investment, but we have ROA. What's that? Return on attention. Wherever our attention goes, energy flows. And so if we learn to invest our attention into Srila Prabhupada's books, we won't be left forlorn somewhere sitting thinking, woe is me. What happened to me? Why did I end up like this? Substandard in many different ways and lamenting. We don't have to do that. And we can ask ourselves, I don't know what you expect staring into the TV set. If you invest your attention into a screen mindlessly, what do you expect? Right? Say yes. You have to work with me. Work with me, people. Yeah, there you go. Let's get warmed up. Okay. So, I often ask audiences if there's anything you don't like being subjected to. Anyone? Work with me, people. Anyone don't like what you're being subjected to in life? Say yes. There's something. Change the subject. We have that power. We have a superpower, actually. We can change the subject anytime. In fact, in any conversation, in any context, we can decide which channel to listen to. And that's what we can do to improve ourselves on every level, is to change the channel, change the subject. And if you're subjected to something you don't like, change the subject. We have that power to move out of certain types of situations by changing the sound vibration that we're submitting ourselves to. And we can remember also, notice that you're a self-contained unit. Take a look at yourself. See if you can look at yourself. Yeah, you're a unit, right? You have a stomach, and you have eyes, and you have a brain. And there's a way that we're a container-like unit. So the word content and content, it's the same word. You just pronounce it differently. Say content. Content. Now say content. Content. So your contentment depends on your content. And we are containers. So you have to remember that if you fill a container full of unwanted substances, then that will determine your level of contentment. Or I should say, if you fill yourself with unwanted content, then you'll feel discontent. But if you fill yourself up with good content, then what might be the likely result based on the context so far? Who said it? You said what?
That person will be content.
He said that person will be content. 20 points. 20 points. So you're in the lead so far. Keep track. Okay. You are here. Did I misspell that? Intentionally. Because if you look on a directory at a mall and it'll say you are here, H-E-R-E. But the way the Srimad Bhagavatam describes it is you are here. Where are you? You're where your hearing is taking you. And therefore you can remember wherever you are is dependent on what you're hearing. We don't see the world the way it is. We see the world the way we are. We see through the lens of our minds. And when the mind becomes cleansed, then we're able to see reality. I was thinking this morning, because of the Tula, I got to sit on the Tula today. 174 books. Can anybody beat that? That's before breakfast. So I was thinking of the verse, Narayana parak sarvena kutaschana pipyati swarga pavarga narakeshu apitulyarta darshana. It says, for a person who's devoted to the Lord, Naraka and Swarga are the same. It's Tula. Apitulyarta darshana, because they see it the same thing, because their mind is pure. And all they're looking for is service. How did they get there? By hearing. And they've shaped the lens of their mind in such a way that they're looking for service to Krishna. So they're satisfied in any case. So you are here. That will develop who you are and where you're going. And this is a personal story. I write things down. I carry a little notebook. I'll show you right now. I carry a couple things in my pocket. Would you like to see? Yes. I'm not convinced. You don't want to know. All right, I'll show it to you. So I carry a notebook like this. The brand is called Moleskin. It fits my pocket perfectly. It's all paper, don't worry, it's non-violent. And I also carry a couple shlokas in my pocket. See these? These are shlokas. So if you're waiting for an elevator here, it's time enough to read at least 1.5 of these. And then in my notebook, I write things down, have a pen right here, I hope, and I write down any thoughts and ideas. So one day, I was on a walk in our neighborhood in California, San Francisco, not so far from the San Francisco Bay. And I was observing that there are storm drains along the sidewalks. You know what a storm drain is? Yeah. So the water during rainy time has a place to run down and it goes through a piping system. And there's an iron placard on each one of them with an emblem of a fish. And then it says, "No dumping, drains to bay." Because anywhere in the Bay Area where we live, if you dump something in the street and you think, oh, it's not going anywhere, it is going somewhere. The rainwater carries it down through the gutter and it goes through the storm drain, and that ends up in the San Francisco Bay. And then I started thinking, because I was chanting, I thought of that in relationship to the admonition given in the Shastra that we should be careful what we hear about. And I thought of these openings here. You have them? Check and see. Check. Any openings? Yes. Still there? Yeah, they're free. They're thrown in for free when you get a human body. 2 free ears. We'll just throw it in for free for you. They're like storm drains. And I was thinking of getting a tattoo here in Mumbai above each ear with a little fish that says, "No dumping." Drains to the bay of the heart. This is the repository of everything we hear. Just as in the Bay Area, everything you dump, it goes down and water seeks its own level and ends up in the San Francisco Bay. Everything we put in here, it flows to the heart. It stays there. You'll dream about it. It'll be the next thing you talk about when you're sitting with your friends or loved ones. Whatever you put in here goes in here, and then the impulse comes out to say it. Therefore, no dumping, drains to the bay of the heart. Yang vapi svaran bhavam, tam tam evaite konteya. Krishna says, be careful. Your consciousness is the aggregate of all the things that you've heard. And if you think it's not affecting you, think again. Whatever you put in here ends up here. That creates your bhava. That's your feeling, that's your personality that you develop. And even when you leave this body, the force of that which is in your heart, that you've accumulated from what you've heard over as many years as you have while you're in this body, is going to compel you to go to your next body. It's already been arranged for you based on what's here. And you don't have any say in it when the final tick on the clock happens and it says, time to go. It's like, what do you got? Let's see what you put in there. So, yang bhapi smaran bhavam. Anything that you collect, yang bhapi smaran bhavam, that becomes you. That's your feeling. So the best channel I'm proposing is Srila Prabhupada's books. The channel means which books you decide to read. And if you switch to this channel, then your life, your consciousness, everything will become purified. And I like to make this mantra a regular in my life, and that is upgrade your reading, upgrade your life. If you want to know, as a human being, how to upgrade your life, and there are plenty of inquiries about that. In fact, I just saw a little advertisement yesterday about how reading affects the mind so much. And human beings especially have this ability to read. So if you upgrade your reading, you'll upgrade your life. It's a simple formula. What do you think? On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best idea you ever heard, and 1 means you're just saying yes to be nice. 10? 10, okay. Thanks. So of course, this is well documented. Tanama rupa charitari sukirtananu smrityo kramena rasanamana niyoja tishtan vraje tananuragi janaragami kalam nayeda kilamitu padesha saru. Rupa Goswami gives what he calls the essence of all advice. Upadesha saram, the cream of all advice. Wouldn't you want to hear that? Yeah. When somebody says Rupa Goswami is going to give you the cream of all advice, then you do this. This is how Uddhava was sitting when he met with Krishna. Remember Prabhu? Before Krishna left, and Krishna was leaning back against a young banyan tree, and he had one foot. He had an ankle. More graceful he was, with the ankle over his leg, and he was leaning back. And meanwhile, Uddhava, realizing this was the last time he was going to hear from Krishna, he was leaning in like this. He was sitting in, not on a chair, but on the ground, and he leaned like this. It's right in the text. And so, Rupa Goswami says, this is human life. In fact, the word Upanishad, it means to sit up close. That's a translation of Upanishad. There's something so important for you to hear, you should lean in. You should sit as close as you can and try to hear every syllable. It's so important in transforming your life. So this is the essence of all advice Rupa Goswami's in. And then you say, what's he going to say? And he says, organize your life so that you can constantly hear the transcendental sound vibration. That's all he says. And he says from that, there'll be a natural chain of events, awakenings in your life that will bring you to the highest consciousness possible for a human being. Tishtan vraje tananuragi jananugami. You'll become attracted to the spiritual world, to Vrindavan especially, and to the residents of Vrindavan, and you'll want to follow them, and you will follow them just by hearing. That's all you have to do. Human body is meant for this, and this is the essence of all advice. After receiving all of Lord Chaitanya's teachings, and after simplifying the teachings in a book called Upadeshamrita, and after simplifying all the teachings of the Upadeshamrita in one verse, Rupa Goswami says, lean in, hear, constantly to the transcendental sound vibration. And of course, Sadyori Dhyavarudyate Tra Kritibi Shushushabis Takshana. This is one of the opening verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam that says, if you want to capture Krishna, if you listen to Srimad Bhagavatam, he'll be captured in your heart. He likes Srimad Bhagavatam because Bhagavatam really is about Krishna's devotees. More than anything, it's about Krishna's devotees. The whole story of Nrsingadev, it's not really about Nrsingadev, it's about Prahlad. And demons become devotees in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Vritrasura. In the Rig Veda, he's a big demon. In the Bhagavatam, it's like, wait a minute, let's take a look. He's actually the devotee. Again and again, the Bhagavatam is spotlighting the pure devotion. And it appears here, there, and everywhere. And that's the essence of the teaching. And Krishna is attracted to that. He's attracted to his devotees. Mayam regam dayite ipsintam anvadavad. Jiva Goswami points out in this famous verse, which I'm sure you all know, it's from the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, describing Ramachandra, Krishna, and Lord Chaitanya, 3 in one verse. And in relationship to Krishna, it says, Mayam regam dayite ipsintam anvadavad. That Krishna is so smitten by the love of his devotees that he runs here and there in Vrindavan, trying to please them. So, this says, if you listen to Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna will become attracted to you, because that's what you're listening to, is the Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada puts it, he'll become compact within your heart. like he's stuck there. He can't get out. And how long does it take? Not long at all. Sadhya hridaya, it happens immediately, practically. That's how powerful hearing the Bhagavatam is. So books are the basis. Prabhupada liked that saying. Books are the basis. And you'll notice even, you may have seen during the pandemic, if you ever watch people around the world, secular people even, when they're broadcasting from their homes, one of the most popular backdrops, whether it's virtual or it's actually part of their home furnishings, are books. Did you notice that? People always have a bookshelf, not always, but many people have bookshelves behind them. You've seen it? Yes. Yeah. Humans like books for good reason. Don't get me started on books. Don't let me go down this pathway. I'll just move on. I can't help myself. So these books, Prabhupada said, are the foundation stone of our movement. He wrote that to one of his disciples, Hridayananda Goswami. These books are the foundation stone of our movement. And that means not just selling, but also reading. All of my students should read our books very diligently, at least 1 or 2 hours daily. Let's read this together. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. In Hawaii, one of my god sisters tells a story. It's on the memories of Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada gave a Bhagavatam class, and he said, if you recite 1 chapter of Bhagavatam every day, then you'll go back home, back to Godhead. And that's what everyone said. They said Haribol. And Prabhupada said, so, you will do it? And everyone said, and then Prabhupada repeated, he said, if you'll read 1 chapter of Bhagavatam every day, you'll go back home, back to Godhead. Then he said, will you do it? And everyone said, and he said it a 3rd time. And Baba Charini says, that was the most amazing offering Prabhupada made. Hare Krishna Bhima Prabhu, my obeisances. Thanks for coming. It was the most amazing benediction Prabhupada offered right there for the devotees. She said, do you want to hear something even more amazing? Do you want to hear? Yes. Nobody did it. That's really amazing. That Prabhupada would offer such a benediction 3 times, and then nobody did it. Why? Because we forget, or we just move on, we don't take it seriously, or we think maybe I'll do it tomorrow, and then all of a sudden you find you're 65 years old and you forgot. And then it becomes hard, you're busy. So if you take up any of these statements as a way to construct your life, to organize your life based on Rupa Goswami, based on what Srila Prabhupada says, you'll experience spiritual advancement in the first day, the first hour, by reconstructing your life around reading Prabhupada's books. Absolutely guaranteed. What to speak of if you keep it up over a long period of time. Not only you'll notice, everyone else will notice. I have a godbrother. He passed away, but I once was in Vrindavan and I sat down for his class, his Bhagavatam class, and my mind was blown. I said, this person is a scholar, a gentleman, an amazing devotee, and I asked him, can I meet with you? And I went for a walk with him. I said, what happened to you? How did you get like this? He said, I made a plan to read all of Prabhupada's books and just stay absorbed. I mean, he didn't really admit that he was awesome, but he knew what I was talking about, that he had become conversant. He was obviously advanced spiritually, and he said he had leaned into the reading of Prabhupada's books. The result is palpable. It's noticeable, not just you'll notice it yourself. You'll have self-control. You'll have better decision-making power, and everyone else around you will notice it also. What does this say? Does somebody have a microphone? We need somebody to read it. Prabhu, why don't you read that? Tech support on aisle 1.
All devotees connected with the Krishna consciousness.
Nice and slow and dramatic.
All the devotees connected with the Krishna consciousness movement must read all the books that have been translated, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and others. Otherwise, after some time, they will simply eat, sleep, and fall down from their position. Thus, they will miss the opportunity to attain an eternal, blissful life of transcendental pleasure.
What do you think? Anybody have any reaction to that? Raise your hand if you have a reaction. Okay, you're about to raise your hand, so tell me your reaction. How did it make you feel?
I was just thinking, just by reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada books, one will go back home, back to God.
That's not nothing, right? Yeah, if you have a clear path, then you can take it. And Prabhupada gives these clear instructions. What else? What other reactions did you have from hearing that statement from Prabhupada? Anything? I can tell you have one. Go ahead. The green shirt. Okay, you and me.
Prabhu, it makes me conscious that yes, we should read. It gives a sense of awareness. By not reading, we are missing on a major thing.
That's good. That makes me happy because that's the purpose of this seminar. It's just to bring us, reorient us towards how important it is to read. What's your reaction?
It just shows how awesome being associated here is, because if you try to look at everything else, how difficult life is otherwise, and you look at this, it just makes you realize that, oh, even though the goal is so beautiful, the way to get there isn't that hard.
That's a nice point. I like that. And when you said that, it reminded me of the movie we saw earlier. It was a very interesting twist, wasn't it? The young man finds a book on a park bench. It transforms his life. Did you like that part? I love it when that slide comes on and he's experiencing the nectar of the teachings of the great sages over so many generations and so forth. But then his life changes and he becomes absorbed in his life and he's not doing as much as he could. And then he remembers that he could come back to that. They clean the house, he and his wife together, and then they start reading the book again and it all comes back. We're always redeemable. And there's a point at which, as you're saying, we know what the steps are, right? To read Prabhupada's books. Any from this side? We're going to expect much from you. Yes, go ahead. Give her the mic. In 7 seconds or less, or your money back from this seminar.
Prabhupada made everything so easy and smooth for us, but still we have so many excuses to just avoid it.
And today we're going to have we have a little wastebasket in the back. We're going to have it lined up. And everyone's going to write your excuses on a little piece of paper. And on your way out, you just throw them away. Okay? All right. Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So after reading this, the reaction was that the other reality that one will have to face, which is if they don't read, which is eating and becoming lazy and then falling down, seems to be a very real possibility, and that seems to be a very dark. And that is something which really inspires me to go ahead and read, even if I'm not having the best time while reading. So hence it is a very inspirational quote. Thank you so much.
Where this comes in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's about those who eat the stems of lotuses. In other words, if they have a pure diet, then they are in the mode of goodness, and you can see the effulgence that they have, right? There's an old saying, you can't outrun a bad diet. Because some people think, well, I'll go jogging, and then they just, like, what? You have to have a good diet. There's a one-to-one relationship with diet and your health and your physical appearance and so forth. And in the same way, one-to-one relationship with how much you read Prabhupada's books and how Krishna conscious you are. So Prabhupada's very blunt here, isn't he? Say yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's blunt. And there's a way in which one-to-one relationship. If you want to feel better in your spiritual life, if you want to know how, a lot of people, how do I control my mind? How do I do this? How do I do that? It's like, read Prabhupada's books. You have to read it. And then you'll naturally advance and you'll have all the answers. Next is, this is an exercise. So, how many of you have something you can write on? Yeah, a tablet, a book. Do you need something? We'll give, if you don't have it, we'll give you a free iPhone. Okay, here's your exercise. Get ready to write on something or borrow a piece of paper or something from somebody. It says, make a firm decision to read Prabhupada's books every day. Write it down on a piece of paper. Put this on your desk, bed, or bathroom mirror. Is that doable?
Yes.
Do you want to take a second to write it down? Say yes.
Yes.
Okay, and if you're near somebody, you don't have something, have them write it for you, and you can send it to them later, okay? Take a minute. Write down your determination, a firm decision to read Prabhupada's books. One sentence. Go. You need something? Free iPhone? No? You wrote it already. Way to go. Let's take 1 minute. Just see what it feels like to make a firm decision to read Prabhupada's books every day. Write it down somewhere. A firm decision to read Prabhupada's books every day. Write it down. Whoever's finished, what did you write? Okay, Nartam Priya. Give him the mic. Here it comes.
I will make a schedule to read Srila Prabhupada's books every day and follow it.
Thank you. And one way to write down forward-looking goals are forward-looking. One way to write down goals is to write it in the present tense. I've heard from goal setters that this is very effective. In other words, you say, I read Prabhupada's books every day. It's in present tense. I read 41 pages of Prabhupada's books every day. I read for an hour a day. Whatever it is, it helps if you write it in the present tense. Okay? Anybody else want to tell what you wrote? Sharing means caring. I got that from Salvation Army. Yes?
I read Bhagavatam every day.
I read Bhagavatam every day. Present tense, and he reads Bhagavatam every day. Now, if you want to add a little something to it, you can put how long you're going to do it for. I read Bhagavatam every day for 5 minutes. Or I read Bhagavatam every day I read 10 pages, 8 pages a day, something like that. And by the way, I mentioned at the beginning of the app, it's a free app. It works for Android and for iOS. It's in the App Store. It's called B-A Sage. B-E, second word A, third word S-A-G-E. B-A Sage, page by page. You can download the app. If you have access now, I recommend you go to the App Store and just download it. Take a look. Take 30 more seconds to go to the App Store. If you have a smartphone, look for B.A. Sage, page by page. You got it? Okay. Here, it should look like this. I don't know if you can see from here. It's sort of a orangey look there. How many of you have found it on the App Store? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just a smattering. Anybody else find it? Anybody can't find it? Okay. We have tech support. Got it?
It says it's for an older version of that.
Yeah, you can show it. Here's what it should look like. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, that's it. All you get is one mantra to find stuff. So let's move to the next thing. We'll get it later, it's okay. How's everyone so far? You're okay? You need a little break? You need to stand up for a second? Okay, everyone stand up. Just stand up. Reach as high as you can. Try to touch the ceiling. And say, Gauranga. And then let your hands down. Relax. And just reach up. Try to touch the ceiling. And say, Go. We'll do it one more time. We're going to do it nice and slow. Just follow my lead. Ready? Go. Thank you. Okay, some of you may have written down, made a firm decision to read Prabhupada's books every day. That's powerful. Once you decide and you write it down, you could chart out a new course in your life and say, I'll read Prabhupada's books every day. Okay, so next. Talk about making voluntary life changes. We call these the VLCs. Make positive changes in your life before change is imposed upon you. That's the smartest thing to do, is decide what's best for you and then make the changes yourself before you're forced to make them. Giriraj Swami tells the story of a young man here in Mumbai, who was helping to translate Prabhupada's books into Marathi, and his father used to come with him. That is, the young boy's father. And they would meet Prabhupada to consult about the translation. And the boy's father had a habit of smoking cigarettes, and he was trying to give it up. So Prabhupada inquired one time, said, how are you doing with giving up your habit? And the man said, I need your special mercy. And Prabhupada said, yes, you can have special mercy, but it means that Krishna will make you so miserable that you would be forced to give it up. And then Prabhupada said, would you like the special mercy? And the man said, no. I'll do it myself. And this is called the voluntary life changes. So make a list of voluntary life changes that you'd like to make preemptively before they're carried out upon you by the modes of material nature. You are the agent of your own improvement. This comes out in the Brahma Sutras. There's a section of Brahma Sutra that Vyasadeva says that it's proof that the Shastras ask us to perform certain practices so that we can become emancipated or to go to other planetary regions. He said, otherwise, if we didn't have agency for change within us, he said, then the Shastra would be meaningless, because who would it be speaking to? So he makes that as proof that we can change ourselves at any time. We can redirect where we're going and how we live, and we can upgrade our habits. And Prabhupada once said, and this is a statement he made that sticks with me constantly, is that if you want to make improvement in your life, you only need two things: knowledge and practice. Knowledge and practice, everyone say. Okay, if you get the knowledge of what to do, and then you become a hero and you decide, I'm going to employ this knowledge in a practice every day, then you'll be able to move forward. Nobody is permanently unqualified. This is illegal. You can't claim this. Some people say, I can't do it because I'm not good enough. That's because you haven't employed knowledge and practice. Or sometimes people say, only certain people can become pure devotees, nobody else. That's not true. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, krame krame, step by step, if you follow the process, then you'll also become a pure devotee. Otherwise, what's the point of the process? So, it's illegal. You'll be arrested and put in jail if you claim this. So, be careful. There's magic in just showing up. Sometimes we think, well, I'm so unqualified, I can't do anything. Have you ever thought like that? I think like that all the time. What's the use of even living? Like, so few things I can do. But then if you just show up at the right places, in front of the right people, somehow there's some magic that gets transferred to us. And one of those cases is showing up in front of Prabhupada's books. Make an arrangement so that you can read Prabhupada's books or hear from somebody else who's reading them, and just be there. There's magic in showing up. You vote with your feet. You're there. I noticed it in school. If I just show up to all the classes and sit in the front row and pay attention, the teacher would notice right away, who is this person? And there's transmission. Even if you're not the smartest one in the room, you always get credit for showing up. So just try to show up, even if you think, I'm not very good at something, and magic happens. I don't have time to read Prabhupada's books. Anybody ever said that? In history, has anybody ever said that? Yeah. So consider the fact it's not time, it's taste. We do what we want. We're souls. We can decide to do anything as souls, right? Yes. Say yes. Yes. And therefore, if we want to read Prabhupada's books, if we have a taste for it, we'll do it. So keep in mind, it's not time, which is interesting too. I meant to ask everyone here because in California, they give us 24 hours in one standard day. And I wanted to know how many you get here in Mumbai. What do they give you? What? Same. Everyone has the same palette. Everyone gets the same 24 hours a day. So they said, I don't have time. It's like you've got the same amount of time as anybody else. So it's not time, it's taste. So what we want to do is develop a taste for reading Prabhupada's books. And you get the taste by, sorry, I've moved ahead. You get the taste by taking time. And that's important. I'm sorry I skipped over that, because have you ever had the thought about reading Bhagavad Gita and then your mind steps in and says, let's not do that, that's boring? Does that ever happen to you? Yes. Thank you for being honest. Because there's a way in which the mind can get into a state. This is pre-nishta. It's mentioned in the Madhurya Kadambini. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur names several obstacles to coming to nishta, or steadiness in the practice of devotional service. First one is sleep. You open a Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, the longest purport in the whole book. Then he said the next one is distraction. You pick up the Bhagavad Gita, you start reading, and then your phone vibrates over on the other side of the room. It's like, I got to get that. And the next one, you're not sleepy, and there's no distraction. But there's just meh. I'm not interested. That hurts, doesn't it? That hurts. And you're in a barren desert as a conditioned soul. It's like Krishna's right here in front of me in the form of Bhagavad Gita, and I just don't care. It's sad, actually. But if somehow we can become a hero and pick it up and say, I'll read one verse, then all of a sudden it comes alive and you say, what are you talking about? This is the best thing ever. I feel so happy, and you get a taste. So remember, it's not time we lack, it's taste, and we only get a taste by taking time. So you have to be a hero. You have to take the time, and then you'll get the taste. Srila Prabhupada said he couldn't understand his guru when he first heard him speak. So sometimes people can't. I can't understand Srila Prabhupada's books. Prabhupada said when he first listened to his Guru Maharaj, he said, I didn't understand everything, but I stayed and I listened. In fact, his Guru Maharaj marked him. He said, upon initiating him in Allahabad, he said, I marked him. He likes to hear, he does not go away. He stays and listens. And that's the qualification. Stay and listen. You may think you're the most inept person in the world, and it may even be true. But if you stay and listen to Prabhupada's books, you'll become learned in every subject matter. And you'll also develop this strong taste for devotional service just by hearing. Stay in here, don't go away. Another problem, I procrastinate. So just read one page. Start with what you can do. If you take too big of a commitment, you say, I'll read 41 pages, 2 days later, there's an emergency, next thing you know, it's 2 months later and you forgot to read. Pick something simple that you can start with and just do a little bit every day. Prabhupada used to go like this. Drops a day, do you know the rest? Wear the stone away. If you go along the coast in some places like Hawaii or California, you'll notice a landmass and there'll be a huge boulder, but there's a hole straight through it. How did it happen? The water kept hitting it over and over again over centuries, and then a hole develops. And Prabhupada said about writing his books, he told this to two devotees that I know of. One was Bhagavad Ashraya Prabhu and the other one was Shruti Kirti Prabhu. Prabhupada said, I write a little something every day. He said sometimes one sentence, sometimes 2 or 3 pages. He said then, he went like this, drops a day, say it. Drops a day. Wear the stone away. Wear the stone away. So if you read a little bit every day, you'll wear the stone-hearted mentality away from your life. Distractions. Here's how to get rid of distraction. Get a do not disturb sign. I just happen to have 2 right in my bag. Where are they? Oh. Yeah, they're here. I got 2 of them. Can you see it?
Yeah.
One on your door and one here. Really, if we want to be disturbed by somebody, we'll set ourselves up. You know, if you're chanting japa and you're looking around, somebody catches you by the eye and then they go like, But if you obviously have the body language that I'm in this, don't bug me right now. Or if you're around, you know, your ashram mates and you say, like, now's my time. I can't be disturbed right now. You make the decision. Don't get distracted. Put away all the things that you know will distract you. Be a hero. Lock them up, turn them off. Goals are potent. You have to write them down. So I recommend that you do this exercise today. Write down the number of pages or the number of minutes or hours you want to try every day to read Prabhupada's books. You already wrote down, many of you, hopefully all of you, your determination to read Prabhupada's books every day. Then put a number on it. Your life will explode into change, I promise you. As soon as you put the number down, then everyone will notice around you, this person's got somewhere to go, where to go. And another trick, I'll tell you later. Available and visible. Put the books out the night before. If you're on a reading bent and you're going to continue to read Prabhupada's books, keep them visible. Put the books that you're reading in a place where they're prominent. It's part of your program. So the night before, just before you take rest, clean up your space, get everything neat and tidy, and put out the books that you're going to read the next day, because the first thing that you'll see when you wake up, there's the books, that's my goal. Make it easy on yourself. Carry a book with you. If you have it with you, there's always going to be a gap in your day. That was the secret I was going to tell you before, but I knew there was a slide here. And that is, just like my wife and I got stranded at the San Francisco airport for 2 days. We were flying to Toronto, Canada, and there was a mechanical issue, and they kept moving the time an hour hence that we were going to take off. And that went on all day one day. We had to sleep overnight, and then the next day we went back for the flight, and then we were just about to board, and they said 1 hour from now. And then it happened again and again and again. It just so happened that we weren't bugged by it so much because we had a quota to make in our reading. And we were sitting in a lounge, and there was a revolution. People there, they became so irate that the flight was late, that there was one guy, 2 guys actually, that organized a coalition, and they were chastising the poor customer service guy there who couldn't change anything anyway, which made it even more humorous. And they started threatening, we're going to call the press. That's how angry they were that they were late. They were inconvenienced. And my wife and I were sitting over in the corner reading Bhagavatam, and they tried to recruit us. They said, why don't you join us in our revolution? And we said, we're a little busy right now. We have a quota to finish in our reading. They looked at us like, what's wrong with you guys? And we finished so much reading there because we had no distraction. Everyone thought we were flying, so no one called us. And we were happy. So if you carry it with you, make sure you have it. And you're always trying to make up your pages every day. It'll change the course of your day. And there's little gaps, like if you go to the post office. I don't know about in America. People used to say that there's a lot of drug abuse by the employees and the postal service, but we know for sure there's one drug that they're not taking, and that's speed, because they go so slow. So when you get there, there's this long lag, and I noticed that people who wait in lines, they're always looking like this. But if you bring your book with you, you just lean back and you go like, take your time. You're absorbed somewhere else. Bring it with you and do your pages throughout the day. You're always going to get stuck somewhere. Somebody you're about to take off in the car, and your friend, your wife, your husband says, oh, wait a minute, I forgot my bead bag. I'll be right back. Have you ever heard those words? I'll be right back. And then it's like 10 minutes, 20 minutes. You'll be irate by the time they get back, unless you bring your book with you, and then you sit there and you're like, fine, take your time. I hope you don't come back for an hour. Read again and again. Prabhupada said, it is not that because one has once finished Bhagavad Gita, he should not hear again. We should hear again and again. It becomes thicker every time. Prabhupada's books are deeper than the ocean. Sometimes people move on. They said, I already read that. No, you haven't. You've barely scratched the surface. Even if you've read it 108 times, you haven't really penetrated much. It's so deep. It's unlimitedly deep. Assimilate. Now this is an important point. It's topical. Because nowadays there are so many books to read, right? Say yes. Yes. So this controversy first came up about which books to read in Prabhupada's time. And it was when Western devotees first started coming to India. All they had was a few of Prabhupada's books. But when they came to India, they realized Gaudiya Math's got books, there's Gita Press, there's all these things. And in one incident, there's a case that devotees were bringing books from the Gaudiya Math from previous acharyas. And the temple president took exception to that, and he banned them, and he said, nobody can read books from the Gaudiya Math here in the temple, that these books are from the previous acharyas. And the temple president had said that that was on the authority of Srila Prabhupada. So you'll find this in a morning walk, that the two parties who were at odds with one another got together on the morning walk to adjudicate the case in front of Prabhupada as they're walking. So one of them brings up the problem, and that is that temple president has banned us from bringing these books from previous acharyas. And then the other one argues his case, and he says, yes, because Prabhupada, you said we should not read the books of the previous acharyas. And Prabhupada says, I have said? He said, no, I have said you should read the books of the previous acharyas, but first you should assimilate what you already have. This is the key. We're not against all these books. Obviously, we worship all the authorized presentations from previous acharyas. Nowadays, there are books from, you go down to Loi Bazaar, to Rasa Bihari Lal's. If he's watching live, forgive me. There's some mystic power that shopkeepers have down there. You walk into the smallest store on earth and you find the biggest bookstore you've ever been in. You keep going up one floor after another. How many rooms do you have in this little place? They're full of every book that was ever published. They'll take any manuscript from anybody, edited or not properly, and then they'll put it into a nice looking book and say, here, $5.95. And you can have it too. And then you'll find, you go to some homes of devotees and they've got, including ours, we have, every room is full of books. You ever have this problem in your house? Every room, try moving sometime if you want to move somewhere. It's impossible once you get all those books. You have books from everybody. Everyone's written a book, right? So then which books do you read? Well, Prabhupada gave this suggestion. Assimilate what you have. And so I recommend first exploring how deeply you can go into Prabhupada's books. For instance, you could write a thesis paper, a PhD thesis paper on any one chapter or any one verse from Prabhupada's books. Any one section of the Chaitanya Charitamrita you could become a specialist in, and you could go deeper and deeper into and become a highly learned authority, and you'd still just be at the surface level. To say that I already read all of it, when you haven't, and then move on to all these other books and then half read them is illegal. And Rupa Goswami says it himself. He said that don't become a bookworm. It's not an academic program. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur didn't allow people to keep, his disciples to keep libraries in their rooms even, because he wanted them to avoid this idea of becoming a bookworm. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't read other books. If there are other books that are authorized, and one is referencing them in a thread from what one's reading in Prabhupada's books, and you find it beneficial to flesh out the topic, then fine. But don't veer off and leave behind Prabhupada's books and the exploration, the deep exploration of each one of them. Does that sound okay? Does anybody want to discuss the topic more? Yes.
In reading Srila Prabhupada's books, like sometimes I just completed one reading of Chaitanya Charitamrita, and it seems very nectarian, and then but you feel like, oh, I should also read Bhagavatam every day, and then I should also read Bhagavad Gita every day. So is there are there some tips that you could give where is it fine to read all three every day, or is it fine to just read Bhagavatam and then read Chaitanya Charitamrita after some time?
One of my senior godbrothers once told me that Prabhupada told him, devotional service is according to one's own taste. And reading is like that also. Prabhupada once said himself that I open anywhere and I read in my books, he said, because a sugar doll, apparently that means like what is a sugar doll? It's like a candy on a stick or something like that. What? Yeah, it's like
In Hindi it's called
Golda? Golda. On a candy, he said, anywhere that you lick, it's sweet. And so he said, it's all sweet. So there are many different ways to read Prabhupada's books. Some are more systematic. You start here, you finish there. I like that because for me it's safe. I like to finish what I start. because the mind it's like, let's try something else for a while, and you go that way, and then you veer off and you get unsteady. I like to at least have one book that I'm totally on track with, and I know when I'm going to finish. And the word determination has the word terminus in it, because you start something and you finish. That's determination. But it's all good. If you have a taste for reading all 3 a day, my main point is try to do it in a steady way, because when you do something steadily over time, it has a really powerful effect. This consistency is really important. But it's all good. Any other points on this? Okay. Yes, Prabhu.
Small doubt.
We'll give you a microphone. It's coming. Yes.
One small doubt I got. You suggested that you carry a book while you are going out traveling.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have footwears. Is it okay?
You have what?
We have shoes or footwears like that.
Yeah.
Is it okay to wear the footwears and read the books? Because it's a devotional
To wear footwear and read the books?
Yes. Because he's saying it's a devotional service. Is it okay to read while wearing?
Which you have shoes on? Yeah, Prabhupada did it. Like, he'd be on an airplane, he'd have shoes on, he'd be reading a book. That's okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's okay. Yeah. Probably not in Orissa, but everywhere else. Anything else? Okay, last point. Yes, Prabhu. Raise your hand so I can see you.
Probably could you kindly elaborate on reading being a devotional service?
Reading being devotional service?
Yeah, not academic.
Is Shravanam. And if you read out loud, it's Kirtanam also. If you read to other people. Reading is Shravanam. Okay, so it's not so much academic, it's devotional service. And I was from a godbrother who was leaving his body. One of the things he said before he left, you know, when people are leaving, especially devotees, they look at the world in a profound way, things they wish they had done better, and so forth. And he said, don't read Prabhupada's books just for the knowledge or try to gain some wisdom to teach other people, but read it to connect personally with Prabhupada. And this is something I think about regularly, is that an author gives the best of him or herself in their books. They'll tell more in a book than they will in person oftentimes. If you approach, for instance, a famous person on the street and say, tell me about yourself, they'll say, get away from me. But they write it all down in a book. They'll tell you everything about their life. And if you curl up somewhere and you read it, it's like they're sitting there telling you their life story and what they're thinking in all circumstances. And Prabhupada said repeatedly, everything I had to say, I put in my books. So this is a very personal exchange. When you take time to read Prabhupada's books, you'll feel his association very profoundly. And especially if you hear it regularly and if you hear it for a long period of time. We were just in Govardhan. We only had 23 days in the ashram to read the whole 4th canto. So we read the whole thing. It took us about 100 pages a day reading together. They're long purports, so extra time. It took us 5 hours a day. And the result was life-changing. But one of the experiences, wasn't it, David Vrata, Prabhu and Sudhira, those who were there, I see in the room, that we just felt Prabhupada's presence. And I said at the time it was like a hologram. All of a sudden, the personalities manifested out of thin air, and by hologram. And when we were reading the 4th canto, hearing Prabhupada's purports, and some of them are so brutally honest there that we were shaken. Devotees were walking out of the room like, "Oh my God, I better get my life together." And what was I thinking? And we all felt that Prabhupada manifested there like a hologram. And he was just in the room speaking to us directly from reading the 4th canto. And so this is the best of the best to get association with Prabhupada directly, to read his books. And he said as much. He said, if you want my association, read my books. Okay, don't become a bookworm. This is the quotation from Rupa Goswami. It comes up twice in our literatures. Well, one was Tapana Mishra. He read too many books. He stopped in at the Loi Bazaar and started reading everything. And next thing is like, what am I supposed to do? And then he had a dream where he was going to meet Lord Chaitanya, and he did. And he asked Lord Chaitanya what he should do. And he said, just chant Hare Krishna. So don't become a bookworm. We're not just trying to gather information. We want to go deeply within the process. Everyone okay?
Yes.
Is the time okay?
Yes.
How many more minutes do I have? 5? 10? Oh, don't say that. Everyone will leave. Okay. Just a few more minutes. I have a few more slides. Everyone okay?
Yes.
All right. You know this word at the top? Look it up on your phone. Dilettante. Look it up on your dictionary. Quick. You got a smartphone, right? What does it say, Nartan?
A person who cultivates an area of interest such as the arts without real commitment or knowledge.
Yeah, cultivate something without any knowledge or real interest in it. So a person who cultivates an area of interest such as the arts without real commitment or knowledge. So it's not a casual, we're meant to enter deeply within Prabhupada's books. Now, this was my own realization I came up with. I'll never be able to write like Prabhupada wrote. Prabhupada was the most exceptional. I mean, his whole story and Prabhupada's personages and the way he wrote, we just saw his dictaphone today, and it sent chills up our spine just being close to it. And the way he just sat and delivered the absolute truth. It says a stream of consciousness, because that's what was in his consciousness. Who will be able to write like that? And so many books, pristine, beautiful, and to organize the publishing of them. It's hard enough just to write a business card, isn't it? It takes you like 3 weeks. If you try to write a pamphlet, you'll be working on it for a year. What to speak of writing 80 books in a few years? That's a miracle. And so who can write like Prabhupada, right? The kind of energy that he put into writing his books is legendary. He woke up at 12 o'clock at night and he would strain his physical body by not sleeping just so he could produce his books while managing the rest of the movement and giving lectures and personal association to people. So we may not be able to write like that, but we can read like that. Huh? Come on, give it up. Yeah. You might think. And you should write. Prabhupada wanted the devotees to write. But think, how could I read like Prabhupada wrote? That's a relationship with Prabhupada. To say, I'm going to put the same kind of emphasis and time and effort into reading his books that he put into writing them. Try that and see if it doesn't put you on a new track in life. Like, what's Dilip doing these days? I haven't seen him in 2 weeks. Dilip? He's in his room reading Prabhupada's books. He doesn't come out. I see his light on at 12 midnight. What's he doing in there? He's reading Bhagavatam. What if you lived like that? So try to emulate Prabhupada's energy in reading his books and see what that does for your life. Keep the transcendental vibration going. Once I was on tour with a senior godbrother, and we had gone from the evening kirtan and was about to start the Bhagavad Gita class, and there was about a minute and a half break when everyone was transferring, moving asanas from here to there, scooting the Vyasasana over and this and that. And he got all agitated and he said, keep the transcendental vibration going. Because there was a break of 5 or 10 seconds. And I said, that's going to be my new motto. I picked it up right from that senior godbrother's mouth. And this is the admonition that we get from Rupa Goswami. Tannama Rupa Charitari Sukirtananu. Keep the transcendental vibration going. That's K-T-T-V, K-T-T-V-G, exclamation point. Everyone say it. K-T-T-V-G, exclamation point. Keep the transcendental vibration going. And if you do get a tattoo on your way home today, 2 things are authorized. You can put no dumping, drains to bay above your ears, or you can get a KTTVG right here. Okay, read in the gaps, I already talked about that. And I realized that once, I wrote this book a few years ago called Our Family Business. And I learned a lot about publishing. One of the things was the publishers at the end, they wanted to go through electronically and make sure that there were no extra spaces. And I said, oh, how is that going to make a difference? I said, sometimes it saves pages. Because a lot of little tiny gaps that aren't necessary in a 400-page book, it could be a whole page or 2 pages, right? And so I started thinking, in my life, how many little gaps are there? If I can go and push the air out of those little gaps, I'm going to get, an extra hour or something like that. So if you look for those gaps in your life and you make sure you're ready to read, instead of just sitting there and whining about why somebody didn't show up on time, then you're going to be ahead of the game. Okay. Starve distractions, feed your focus. And this is it's a new department in the universities called applied procrastination. There's a way in which when urges come, you just say, not right now. I'll do it later. And instead, apply yourself to where you're going to get the best return. And I also recommend going on a news fast. You know what news is? Yes. You know what breaking news is? Breaking news is news that breaks your concentration and it breaks your heart. I mean, the kind of stuff they put out there is like, I'm a simple human being. I'm sensitive. How can I handle this much? Drinking this kind of thing from a fire hose, it's detrimental to your mental health to hear stimulating news, things that you can't do a thing about in your life that seem catastrophic. There's a word for it nowadays on the phone called doom scrolling. Doom scrolling. You're scrolling and it's like, oh, that's bad, that's worse, this is terrible. Why do that? If you don't like what you're being subjected to,
change the subject.
Change the subject. If you don't like what you're being subjected to, change the subject, change the channel, upgrade your life. Find the new channel, focus on Prabhupada's books. Go on a news fast. Somebody brings up the news, that's okay. Read Bhagavatam instead. Bring up something that was in the news that's related to Krishna's pastimes. In fact, sometimes we do this when we're reading. Like when we get to the temple, my wife and I are reading in the car on the way there. One of us, she drives, and I read. And then when we get out of the car and the devotees are waiting, we go, did you hear the news? And everyone's going, what happened? We'd say, Krishna just lifted a hill. That's the real news. Jai Swami used to do that to me all the time. We'd be at Govardhan, we'd sit down for Prashant and go, did you hear about it? And I said, what? He goes, Krishna killed a donkey today. So go on a news fast and instead take the real news of the spiritual world. And we also recommend you join CHAD. It's an international underground organization. We claim thousands of members. We have a website called readchad.com. CHAD is chapter a day. And if you add into your diet, just like if you're feeding a racehorse, you don't give them Rice Krispies, you don't give them inferior food, you give them the best of food. It's the same thing. You have to have a rich diet. And one of the elements to the diet, your spiritual diet, is to read, at least chant the verses, Sanskrit or English, every day of one chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Add it to your diet, and you can join Chad. We actually have cards. You can be a card-carrying member of Chad. Download the app, please, and use sticky posts. I talked about that. Create a sacred reading space. If you have a place that you repair to where you can read at home, and you can put up your sign, and you feel comfortable there, to get in the habit of reading regularly. And offer prayers before and after reading. Don't just jump in. Maybe have some ceremony, some verses that you say, or at least one verse honoring your spiritual masters, and then start the book with reverence. And when you finish, say a prayer of gratitude for being able to read. Make it a sacred occurrence to be able to read Prabhupada's books. Collect mentors who can help you understand different sections. I love doing this. There's certain parts of Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita or Chaitanya Charitamrita you may run into, and you say, God, what does that mean? Where does this come from? So there's so many learned devotees around the world, and they specialize in different areas. Like if you're reading the 5th canto and you want to know about the difference in planetary systems and how the universe is actually laid out, you should have a person on your Rolodex that you can call and say, how does that work? If you have a query about some Sanskrit term and where it comes from, have somebody on your Rolodex. I have people that are learned in a certain area that I'll write to for certain questions, so that when you're reading Prabhupada's books, you can flesh out the parts that you have questions about. You want to go a little deeper. You already did this, right?
Yes.
How many of you actually downloaded the app? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Okay, download the app later if you didn't do it yet. And finally, grow by giving. This section really is about distributing the books, and we talked about that yesterday. The more you distribute them, the more that you'll actually have a taste for it. And one of the ways is when you distribute books and you notice that people read them and become instantly enlivened, then it'll remind you of what it was like the first time you got one of Prabhupada's books and you started reading it. And it refreshes that feeling of how vital it is to read and hear Prabhupada's books. Sometimes when I distribute books and I notice somebody reading, have you ever had that happen? You distribute some books and then you come back and you see there's somebody there with a book for the first time reading it. I sometimes sneak around behind them and I try to see what they're reading, so I can experience it vicariously through them as if I'm reading for the first time. Because I remember the first time I got one of Prabhupada's books, and it's hard to describe, but it was like after billions of years being in the material world, suddenly finding the light. And I want to experience that daily over and over again. And by distributing the books, then that's one of the ways that we remind ourselves of how important it is. Now we'll take a few final questions or comments. Prabhu.
There are some quotes from Srila Prabhupada which says that hearing is more effective. I wanted to read out this thing. Reading or hearing from the realized person, there is no difference. But hearing the sound vibration from the realized soul is still more effective, better. How to understand this? Why hearing is more effective than reading? Why Prabhupada is saying that, and how to implement it in our lives?
Well, one observation I've had is that when you hear from devotees, there can be a discussion, and in the discussion, you can flesh out the topic, and you can also benefit from the person's realization. When we read together at Govardhan, as an example, many of the devotees, in fact all of the devotees who are there, are advanced because they wouldn't be there if they weren't. You got to sit there for 5 hours a day. Sometimes people come in the environment just to visit and they leave after about a half hour. It's like, my mom called me. She needs a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and I got to go. But in any case, I noticed that in the discussion, the devotees' realization of it And if sometimes those who are noticeably more advanced come into the room and they start talking about a passage, something we just read, then everyone gets new meaning from it. In fact, I've had experiences. I've been going to Govardhan doing that for 22 years, 21 years. And I can remember times when special devotees were there who then said, oh, yes, here's a point that I've thought about or that I found somewhere else. And that becomes a permanent asset. It's almost as if I just started a new bank account somewhere and someone said, I'll put $1 million in it for you. And that's not enough in rupees, more like, how much is enough? A crore?
Yeah.
Crore rupees. And then you walk away because of what you get in the discussion, hearing from a realized devotee. Yes. Microphone in quadrant 1.
Prabhu, while reading the first canto of Bhagavatam, it was repeatedly said by Prabhupada in the purpose that don't start with the 10th canto, don't jump to the 10th canto, because take your time, go through all of the cantos and then finally come to it. But while I was reading the first canto, I was so attracted by the Krishna book, because it's a summary of the 10th canto. I couldn't stop myself and I actually jumped to the 10th canto and I stopped reading the first canto for a while and I read the whole Krishna book a few times. What are your views on that? Because sometimes it makes me feel guilty. Should have I not done that, or is it okay?
Well, first thing is you're out of the movement. Actually, we talked about this very thing in class this morning. Prabhupada wrote the 10th canto as a summary, but he gave context. It's not just straight verses or commentary on each verse, but he encases every point, especially the vital ones where we could misinterpret them, or the jump ahead part means you don't understand the categories of truth. Tattva means, tat means that. It's pointing to a specific category of energy. And tattva means thatness. And you haven't understood Vedanti tattva vidas tattvam. You're either a Mayavadi or a materialist, and then you misinterpret what you're reading in the 10th canto. But Prabhupada encases every section of the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam with context, so we can't make that mistake. He holds our hands. He's so kind. And he presented in that way. As Radhika Raman Prabhu pointed out, he gave a seminar at ISV, that's just kind of Silicon Valley, just before we left. And he was talking about how Prabhupada's repetition, some people say it's so repetitive. Prabhupada quotes Sarvadharma Prityaja over and over again and makes similar points. He said he did that for a purpose, to make sure that nobody lands anywhere in his books without context of what's most important. He makes those points. So the Krishna book, although it's the most important because without hearing about the personality of Krishna, as evidenced in the 5th chapter of the Bhagavatam, the whole discussion between Narada and Vyasadeva is Narada chastising Vyasadeva for doing too much bridge preaching. It's like, it's getting a little too bridgy here, It's like, where's this bridge going anywhere? And anyway, and he says, you got to talk about Krishna! And he chastised him, Jagupsitam, this is horrible what you're doing. And he just wrote all the Vedas, that's it. And Mahabharata and everything. So we want to come to the point of understanding Krishna, but we want to make sure that we have context. So Prabhupada kindly did that. It's not the end of the world, even if we read the 10th canto, the parts that are there by the servants of Prabhupada who finished it. It's evident of how potent Prabhupada was in teaching his disciples that they could be qualified enough to write the way Prabhupada did, to give context with everything. You'll notice that they do that even in their purports. They're quoting the acharyas, but they also are careful to follow Prabhupada's method of context, 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 so nobody makes a mistake, a spiritual mistake, which is thinking that I'm the same as Krishna, he's just a boy, Radharani's a girl, these types of things. Okay? So you're okay. Obviously. Better than okay. Yes. We'll take a couple more questions.
Hare Krishna. So as it was mentioned that reading should be considered as devotional service.
Yes.
But what to do when there is a conflict between two devotional service? For example, if, like for any working professional who gets weekends off and they spend most of their time in temple doing certain devotional service, hearing lectures. But then sometimes we may feel that, oh, I should stay at home and probably read books. So how can we balance that aspect?
Well, it's like building a financial portfolio. You have to look at it carefully, what you're doing. Like your financial portfolio, there's risk considerations, and you have to decide, what kind of balance I'm going to have. And with your life also, you get an ayu when you're born. You have a certain amount of time, although you don't know how much it is. And you have to apportion yourself what is most beneficial for you. Now, I mentioned at the very beginning, I was a recipient of Prabhupada's direct instruction. Several of us came in for darshan with Prabhupada, and he said directly to us, you must also read my books. That you also must read my books was in context that our temple president had just read Prabhupada our book scores that we had before he came and visited. And then Prabhupada looked at us. He didn't say anything about the book score. He just said, you must also read my books. And then he said, I have not written these books just for selling. I've written them for you to read, become pure devotees, and go back to Godhead. And so I've been through several eras in the Krishna conscious movement. 50 years, that's every 10-year period is a whole new zeitgeist within ISKCON. I mean, the 80s were very different from the 70s, and the 70s were different from the 60s. Devotee was a family-like atmosphere in the 60s, as you can see. Guru Das and Shyamasundar and Malati, and it was one little happy family. And then the 70s, everything took off, and it became more and more hierarchical and more management. Then, of course, the 80s, going through different things. I won't go into all the details, but I'm just saying that I've seen a lot of different eras. And through those eras, I've seen times in which there was a work ethic. And everyone said, work now, samadhi later. I mean, Prabhupada said it. But some people took it as meaning like, just work and don't do anything else. But I already heard Prabhupada say in 1973, you must also read my books. And he was so forceful about it. I thought it must be true that that's what he wants. So through all those eras, I gave myself permission to work that into my portfolio no matter what the environment was. So I recommend that also, that you look at your life, it's your choice. You came to Krishna consciousness on your own free will, and you're staying here on your own free will. You also have the right to organize your portfolio in such a way that it will most benefit you in the end. And I'm making these statements today to prove that it's the best investment you can make in your Krishna consciousness. And without it, your portfolio is going to be anemic. If you don't read all of Prabhupada's books and make a plan, you should have a plan that's so solid that if we wake you up at 1:30 in the morning today and say, when are you going to finish Bhagavatam? You should have a date. You should wake up, turn over in your sleep, and you say, April 3rd, 2027, I'll finish. Right? Because you already planned it out. That's how you should work it into your schedule, in my humble opinion. So if you're working, it's all good, but it's infinitely better if you inject the hearing of Srila Prabhupada's books into that process. In fact, my wife used to cook the feast for the Los Angeles Rath Yatra, And she invited me down there to help out. So I got into a rhythm of a couple of days of cooking, a few 100 pounds of pasta, and some other things. I'd be in charge of a certain area of the cooking of the feast. And then, while we were cooking, we'd have somebody there reading out loud. I'm a big fan of those portable headsets. In fact, I have one in my room right now. I carry it with me wherever I go. It's like a little headset like this, and now they have them wireless, I just found. And in a little box. And during the cooking, we have somebody reading. Right, David Rata? You were one of the readers. And you just read out loud while you're working. So you can work it in at any time. And I highly recommend it. So, last point.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
I'll make a short answer.
My question is related to one of the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yes. Sure.
When there is fire in the house, the inmates of the house go out to get help from the neighbors who may be foreigners, and yet without knowing the language, the victims of the fire express themselves, and neighbors understand the deed, even though not expressed in the same language. The same spirit of cooperation is needed to broadcast this transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam throughout the polluted atmosphere of the world. After all, it is a technical science of spiritual values, and thus we are concerned with the techniques and not with the language. If the techniques of this great literature are understood by the people of the world, there will be a success. So, all techniques, Prabhupada is mentioning a technical science of spiritual values. And he's also saying that techniques and not, we are concerned with the techniques and not with the language.
You said you had a question.
Yeah, this was the question.
What was the question? I didn't hear any question mark. All I heard was this. You read Prabhupada's purport. What's your question about
the
it?
The question is, here he is mentioning, Prabhupada is mentioning that technical...
No. I know what you read. Just say a question. One sentence, no semicolons.
So, Prabhupada is saying that...
No, you're repeating. Ask a question.
What are techniques to tell about the Srimad Bhagavatam to people?
What are techniques?
Yeah, techniques. That you should read it.
One of the techniques is what we've been talking about during this whole seminar, is learning how to get into a culture of hearing. Because any one person who decides to enrich their life by regularly hearing from the Srimad Bhagavatam or the Bhagavad Gita and inviting other people into that circle will grow a community. The hearing process is a technique, and it's one of the main principles of Krishna consciousness, and it is not only the mainstay of any community, but also the genesis of any community. If you build a big temple, but you don't have hearing and chanting within it, you've got a place that you have to sweep up regularly and fix the plumbing on, and that's all you've got. But if you have hearing and chanting and you live in a field somewhere, you've got the foundation for a spiritual revolution, Tadvag Visargo Janataga Viplavo, etc. So this is one of the most important techniques you can teach anybody, and it's all summarized in one tattoo, KTTVG exclamation point. So thank you very much everyone for taking your valuable time, and I hope there's one or two things that you're taking away from today that you'll find valuable in moving forward on your glorious path of devotional service. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Gaurnitai, Shri Shri Radha Rasa Bihari Ji, Shri Shri Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman, if you so desire, please empower us in our devotional service that we may read Prabhupada's books every day in a scheduled way, so we read all of them and we read them repeatedly and share them with as many other people as possible. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part. Please unmute and say Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,